We must become more than we were programmed to be.
The Wild Robot is a brand new animated film from DreamWorks Animation adapting Peter Brown's famous book of the same name. It's starring Lupita Nyong'o, Pedro Pascal, and is directed by Chris Sanders. And I had the opportunity to check out an early screening of this film here in Austin, Texas at Fantastic Fest, and man, I just don't know why I have to cry so much during animated movies. No joke, I was literally asked by the person next to me if I was okay. Embarrassing. And this tends to happen a lot with DreamWorks Animation, but more specifically, freaking Chris Sanders, man. If you're unfamiliar, he's the man behind Lilo and Stitch as well as How to Train Your Dragon, and he has done it again with this film, and there's a lot to talk about, so let's just get into it. That's right, this is going to be my spoiler-free review of The Wild Robot, so smash like, subscribe if you're new here, and let's get wild. But okay, so The Wild Robot. After a shipwreck, an intelligent robot called Roz is stranded on an uninhabited island. To survive the harsh environment, Roz bonds with the island's animals and cares for an orphaned baby goose. And yes, that might sound simple, but I'm telling you, it's not. Very much like most of the films at Fantastic Fest this year, I went into this one with pretty much zero expectations. I was actually unaware that this film was from Chris Sanders, and I found that out just before the movie started, so all of a sudden my interest was peaked to like level 10. And then I sat through it, and as it finished and I walked out of the theater, I was completely floored by this heartfelt yet incredibly heartbreaking story. The plot revolves around the complications of motherhood and finding your way in the world. Nobody hands you a manual in life, and even if somebody does, oftentimes it's not even close to what you would need to handle real-world situations. And when it comes to this robot looking after this orphaned baby goose, this is where I just continually lost it. Roz has to learn what it means to have a child, what it means to love, and eventually what it means to let go of a child as they grow. It's very cleverly laid out, almost down to a science, I would say. Like, it's designed to break you. And you have this orphaned goose who's looking up to this mother robot and kind of questioning what this world really is, and seeing his kind firsthand and realizing that he's different from them, and how is he gonna fit in with them. And then you also have the story of this fox, Fink, and his story really hammers down the theme of like longing for family. And on the surface, I know that this might just appear as like another fish out of water story, a robot out of the factory, I should say, but I guess what's great about that is that it's proven to be effective, right? And when you have that structure in place, it makes things a little bit easier just to be creative in the way that they wove so many different themes throughout this movie, throughout that structure. It proved to be one of the better animated films that I've ever seen, and I know that they're adapting a well-known and beloved story, but with the animation as well as the vocal performances, like it elevates this thing to new heights. It's so good. Also, just me being me, like sitting down and watching a story about a robot, I can't help but think about like, what world are we living in where we have these super advanced robots that are just walking around? And it almost feels like the director's playing with that a little bit, just giving you little Easter eggs and clues as to what's been happening here. It's very similar to like WALL-E, but it leaves enough room just to kind of speculate on that and chew on as an audience member. But I do want to talk about Lupita Nyong'o here as the main, because she was perfect. I honestly think it could be the movie Us that sort of helps the maternal aspect of her character for me, which is super strange. Comparing horror to an animated film is a little bit outlandish, but that's just my life. But the thing that I enjoyed the most about her character is just like throughout this film, she's continually finding her voice. She starts as this robot that's very by the book, and she eventually starts to kind of break out of that shell. Also, there's Pedro Pascal. I don't know, this guy is just on a high right now. He's doing everything. It feels like you can see him in everything, but you can also now hear him in everything. But there's a reason for that. He plays Fink, the friendly fox, and he was so great. Honestly, his character is one of the more heartbreaking elements to this story. I talked about how it kind of hammers home the longing for family, the longing for love, but there's a lot of dialogue with him that is unsaid, but it's understood. And then you have Kit Connor as Bright Bill, a character in which this story really revolves around this orphaned goose. And this is where I was thinking, just like every layer of this film hits so hard. Like the nature and the wilderness of this film are a giant character in themselves. You have geese flying south, you have animals hibernating and sheltering for the winter, and then you also just have like the food chain in general. Everything is utilized to enrich this story and add to this story. And the way that Chris Sanders has proven already to work with characters like Stitch and characters like Toothless. He just does such a great job with whether it be animals or in this case robots, and just humanizing them and really making you feel something with every single frame, just with a look. The animation is already telling such a deeply rooted story, and then when you add the vocal performances on that, you add the voice acting, and you get these big stars and you bring them in, it's really, really well done. I'll probably say that 1,000 times, and after coming off of Transformers 1 and now going into this, like, the best animated film of this year is actually getting pretty competitive. This might be top 3 DreamWorks for me, which is kind of wild, but yeah, man, The Wild Robot, it's a touching reminder that family is not defined by who you are, but by the love and care that you give. It's a beautifully animated tale, and is sure to leave you with a full heart and maybe a few tears if you're like me. But as always, I gotta give my Jones Vibes star rating, and my friends, I'm giving The Wild Robot 4.5 out of 5 stars, no doubt. But at this point, I will turn it over to you guys. What are your thoughts on The Wild Robot? Have you seen it? Have you not seen it? Are you gonna go see it? Please let me know any and all opinions that you have down below. I'd very much appreciate it. Also, my friends, make sure to hit the like button if you haven't already, subscribe if you're new here, and keep up the good vibes. Peace!